Hi, this is Angelo Rossetti, founder of Tenacity, the Tenacious Mindset on and off the court book and online course. And speaking of a book, I have a second time author and a good friend and a pretty impressive person to introduce to you today. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Sensei Ron Thomas, and he has a new book, The Hidden Life Lessons of Mr. Miyagi, and I have a copy myself. It's an excellent book, and so we're going to discuss it. Sensei Ron, welcome.
Thanks, Angelo. It's a pleasure to be here. Across.
Yeah, it's great. Well, Ron and I have been friends for a while. I've always been a big fan of Karate Kid and the series and sequels. And even now, with the new series out, Cobra Kai, it's something that gets into your blood, and it's just really inspirational stories and all of that. And on the show, the characters are actors. And Ron played a role. He was one of the stars of the original Karate Kid. And I remember his role because he was a bad guy, but deep down you could tell he was a good guy. And I always admired that about Ron. And then when I met him in real life, it's kind of like surreal, like, oh, wait, this is the actor, the person. But there's more that meets the eye to the real life Sensei Ron or Sensei Ron Thomas, much deeper than the character. Not only is he a 6th degree black belt, but he's a former world champion. So karate and martial arts has been a big part of his life, but he's an inspirational speaker and a two-time author. And I find it humorous. His first book is Positive Thinking is for Sissies. I absolutely love that title. Maybe controversial, but so true. So welcome, Ron, and tell us if what was your inspiration behind this book, and when did that first happen?
Positive thinking is for sissies, or
The
Miyagi.
first one, the hidden life lessons. Sorry, the hidden life lessons of Mr. Miyagi. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, um, it's funny. I had the idea for this book before I ever knew Cobra Kai was going to be a series. Before the whole reigniting of the Karate Kid legacy that we've witnessed over the last 6 years, I started taking notes on this book back, I think in 2017. I have to go back in my old computer where I have all my stuff stored, and I haven't opened it up in a long time. But I have my original notes and original ideas about that around 2017, 2018, before they started filming Cobra Kai. And uh, anyway, that's a side note because I know probably people aren't going to believe me when they think I'm just trying to ride the coattails of Cobra Kai and the whole legacy, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
Like you said, I am a sensei. I have a martial arts background. I was in the original Karate Kid, and Miyagi had a lot of really inspiring, life lessons. He wasn't just a karate master; he was a life master. And I was thinking about how can I tie my background into a book about mastery, about life mastery and self mastery. And of course, with my background and being in the Karate Kid and knowing Pat Morita as a friend, and just being part of that whole process, and knowing how the movie has changed so many lives around the world. I mean, the one comment I get all the time from fans around the world is this movie changed my life. And it's not the movie necessarily, it's because it inspired so many people to take martial arts. And martial arts is what changes people's lives. And so I wanted to tie my entire background together in a book in a way that would be fun for fans of the Karate Kid, but outside of the dojo, as the subtitle suggests, the ultimate guide to happiness, success, and mastery beyond the dojo. Because my experience in the martial arts is that a lot of people don't want to come into the dojo to train because they like their nose in the center of their face. They, they're not into fighting necessarily or self-defense or any of that, but they definitely, most people love the esoteric principles and the life skills that the martial arts promises and that the martial arts teaches around mind, body, and spirit. And so that's kind of what sparked me to getting into speaking and taking those messages outside the dojo to a broader audience. And then, and then wanting to put all of those kinds of messages into a book. And so there you go.
I love that. When you were doing the book, is there a chapter that you said, I love them all, but this chapter is the best one, and why?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure that that I have a favorite chapter. I think each lesson in the book, each chapter of the book, is a standalone lesson. It's they don't bleed into the next one necessarily. I mean, they all interlink at some point overall in terms of mastery, under the umbrella of mastery. But each lesson is a on-screen teaching of Mr. Miyagi. That's why this book was so challenging, because I took the on-screen teachings of Miyagi that he was imparting to Daniel-san, or
Yeah,
just Miyagi's way of being.
yeah,
Not necessarily did he intend to teach Daniel-san a lesson in some of these lessons that I put in the book, but it's just his way. As an example, his way of treating a bonsai tree, you know, and his way of respect and honoring a thing, even if it's a plant. He saw the value in the bonsai tree,
yeah,
where Daniel didn't. It was to Daniel, it was a plant. And so, in the book, I talk about respect and respecting a thing. And a master trains his eyes to find value in something where others don't, to see the significance in all things, because all things are significant. A rattlesnake is significant. I don't like them. I don't want one as a pet. And we got a lot around our house where I live now. I can see their value when it comes to the environment and everything. So it's kind of that idea. I don't know where I was going with that. But in terms of my favorite chapter, I mean,
yeah.
I had a fellow martial artist who does a lot of charity stuff, and in karate. He was in Karate Kid 3 actually, and
Mm,
he just read the book, and he right off the bat he loves the first chapter, which is
right.
all about service,
Yeah,
because service is its own reward. Both the person being served or the thing being served and the server get reward out of it, equal benefit. So
yeah.
I
That
haven't.
reminds me, that chapter reminds me of a quote from Arthur Ashe about basically, servicing others and how that kind of defines your life. And in reading that chapter, that made me think about something interesting I've been doing the last 6 months. On every Friday, I go into prisons, maximum security prisons, and I coach the inmates pickleball. And it's a way to pay it forward and give back. And it was scary at first, but I think in life you have to take a risk to make a bigger difference.
Yeah.
And I really believe I'm making a difference in someone's life. And I tell people I'm not teaching them pickleball, I'm actually giving them hope.
That's beautiful. And that's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like, most people would just cast away a prisoner. They were a bad person. They need to be taken off the streets of society. And maybe that's true. Um, but the master trains their eyes to find value in all things, including prisoners, including people who are, out there, who the most people would look at them and go, be disgusted by them. And I don't have to like their behavior. I don't have to like the things that they do, but what we do is not who we are. And the master trains to find the thing that, who is this person? Who is this young degenerate out there causing trouble? What's inside of them? Where is the value? And can I teach that value to them, because they can't even see it in themselves? And
Love that.
that's mastery. And that's expanded consciousness, right? That's not narrow-mindedness, that's expanded consciousness. So for you to go into the prison and see the value in those people and help them find that value in themselves, that that changes the world. I say in the book that respect has the power to change the world.
Yeah.
Because if we just if we could just, I don't have to like you. I don't even have to like your beliefs or your opinions, but if I can respect you enough to have your beliefs and opinions and be able to listen to you, maybe we can have a conversation. you know.
I
I mean,
love that. I
yeah.
love that. It's funny that you said that. A few weeks ago, I went to the juvenile facility for the very first time, and the first 10 or 15 minutes, they were the worst. It was so tough. Nobody paid attention to my dynamic stretches or what we were going to do. Worse than the men and the women. And then I finally said, hold up, you know, I'm here. I'm teaching you the same way I teach anyone else, including pickleball pros on the tour. I'm teaching you the same way, giving you the same information, giving you the same respect. And then a 20-year-old young man said, "You mean you don't see me as a criminal?" And I said, "No, I see you as a person." At that moment, Ron, you can hear a pin drop, and everybody did what I said. And I told them about the world record. I didn't say at first it was me that set, hit the longest rally for pickleball. Like it was over 16,046 shots. I just said, I tried to get them to guess the record. They started at 500. Eventually we got to the number. And then I said, yeah. And I was really thirsty at the end of the record. And they said, you mean it was you? I said, yeah, that 6 hours and 11 minutes was really tough. So then I said, right now, we're going to try to break the record, see who can rally for the next 5 minutes without missing. And I put a target, and if they went into the hole of the target with the pickleball, then they automatically won a gold medal. And sure enough, two guys did that, and they were high-fiving and chest bumping, and I've never seen such pure joy. And then at the end of that 3 hour session, they said to me, Coach, we want you to promise just one thing. And I said, what's that? That you'll come back. And just,
So there you go. I mean, those two lessons out of my book about respect and about service merged, in what you just did, and you were rewarded just as much as they were. That's the service is its own reward. But this whole respect thing is the world could use a mega dose of it right about now.
absolutely.
And it begins with self-respect. And
Yes.
if you can share that, I love that story about, oh, you don't see me like everybody else sees me. You see me as a human being, not a criminal. Yeah, and I want you to see yourself that way too, my friend. You know, um, and let's figure out how you can do that, because you did criminal. That's what you did, but that's not who you are.
Yeah.
That's mastery. That takes a masterful mind. That takes somebody leaning into being more masterful at living and sharing and doing life. And that's the purpose of this book. So,
Love that. I
yeah.
absolutely love that. Did you, before you published the book, before you wrote the book, let's say you're writing the book, did you have a Mr. Miyagi moment in real life and said, whoa, this is what Mr. Miyagi would do?
Um, I've had lots of Mr. Miyagi moments, and and my own sensei growing up, I talk about him in the book a little bit, was my own personal Mr. Miyagi. He thought in ways and spoke in ways to the class that I'd never heard anybody think about or speak about, and a lot of it is spiritual, and a lot of it is mental, emotional, and so those were in my early days certainly Mr. Miyagi moments almost every single time I went to class, because I loved the martial arts, but what I loved more was when he would sit down after, when we were about to bow out and in class, and he'd start talking about these metaphysical type concepts and think esoteric principles, and I soaked that up like a sponge, you know. And he sometimes he wouldn't shut up. It would take him like 30 minutes to bow out because he would get off on a tangent. But I loved that stuff. And prior to that, I was an athlete, a swimmer, competitive swimmer, and everything. So I had learned about at a very young age about the power of visualization and self-talk, and how to the mental game is just as important as the physical game, you
Yeah.
know. And then he took it to a whole nother level with all this metaphysical sort of esoteric stuff, that spiritual, mind, body, spirit thing that came out of the dojo, that I adored it. So I can't pinpoint a specific Miyagi moment prior to writing this book or during it, but I
Hmm.
can go back in time and
Yeah.
find lots of Miyagi moments in my life.
I love what you said about your sensei, the person who kind of, groomed you, so to speak, to be who you are, and you had a sponge. Usually at the end of the pickleball session, I go back to it, but there's so many things that resonate with me. Usually for a couple minutes, I'll give a wrap up and I'll talk about controlling your controllables, because if you're in prison, you don't have freedom, you don't have control over your freedom. So you got to be able to accept it. You might not agree with it, but you might not like it, but you have to accept it, just like you say respect. So I said there's seven controllables: your effort, your attitude, your gratitude, your learning, your enjoyment, your sportsmanship. And then the silent F in Eagles is freely. That spells Eagles, F. And I told uh, this group of prisoners that at the end, and one of them remarked, "Wow, this is more than just a pickleball lesson. These are life lessons." The very next week, so this is Ron, after one session, the next week, it was sunny outside. So they had measured two pickleball courts on a basketball court with, they wrote it out in colored chalk. They built two pickleball nets, and in large letters between both courts, they put EAGLESF. They wrote what each word stood for, and they put in pickleball and in life.
That's
it
awesome.
blew it
That's
blew me away. And it just, what you say about life lessons, I love that. And what would you say as far as advice about if someone is having a really tough time? Let's say they're having a tough time in school. They don't like school, they hate homework, they hate going to school, but they know it's important, they know it's something that they have to do. What advice would you give someone like that, a young adult?
um, well, yeah, I don't remember, I don't recall life being easy. I don't recall ever, like we both have an athletic competitive background. I don't recall winning being ever easy. Winning, there's nothing easy about winning. There's nothing easy about training to win. I can only remember, like, training to win and winning being very challenging and very difficult. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Life is not about comfort and ease and coasting through it and, oh, you're just going to be successful. No, if you want to be masterful, that's what positive thinking isn't for sissies, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, positive thinking is for sissies. I'm sorry, because, and not that positive thinking is a bad thing. It's a good thing, but mastery is for warriors, because you got to own your stuff. It's not about school being tough. It's not. You got to go within. Don't go without. Don't go out there looking for your success and your happiness and anything else, because the world doesn't have that for you. You got to find it in here. You got to be the thing you want to be. So if you want to be successful in school, you got to go within and see yourself successful. That's the first thing. You got to
Love that.
respect yourself enough. I mean, there's going to be, I don't know, it depends on what grade I'm talking to.
Yeah,
Uh,
any grade, but I would say young adults. I know there's lot of young adults that just don't like school, whether it's college or even high school.
yeah, yeah, and I think there's a lot of athletes that don't like practice. You know,
Exactly.
my daughter does 3 hours of practice of gymnastics 3 times a week. She doesn't like the strength training, and she'd rather be out there flipping and doing backflips off the beam, But she has to train. She's got to do things. She's got to do the details that make her win when she gets to competition, like keep your legs together, keep your toes pointed. These things have to become muscle memory, and you've got to train to do that. You can't just go do the fun stuff. Life isn't
Yeah.
fun, man. You've got to accept the challenging and the fun together, and you wouldn't want it. You wouldn't want daylight all the time. You wouldn't know what daylight was because there would be no darkness. You have to have the opposites, and you have to know what darkness is in order to appreciate daylight. And so this is kind
Yeah.
of the same thing. You got to know what challenges are to accept and appreciate your successes and your rewards in life and what you had to go through to get there. If you think being a freshman in high school is tough and you don't like school, wait till you get to be a freshman in college. You know, you're,
Yeah.
I mean, so you got to keep it in perspective and not expect that everything is going to be easier, that you're going to like everything. You know, you gotta, you don't have to like it. You don't have to like your coaches. You don't have to like training, but you got to do it if you want
Yeah.
to reap any kind of reward for yourself.
And
So,
as a pickleball coach and tennis coach, you know, that I always make the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes the toughest part of the lesson, because the first 10 minutes is you got to be engaged in competition right away. But the last 10 minutes, if the match lasts 2 or 3 hours, you got to also be very engaged and be playing your best at the end. So, you know, to condition that, and also that the practice is more difficult than reality or a tournament or a match. And, you know, and then when you get to the tournament, oh, the tournament is not as bad as my practice. It's a little
exactly,
easier.
exactly. I always say champions start strong and finish stronger. That's kind of, that 10 minutes and 10 minutes, a cap on the end, on the beginning and the end.
Love
Champions start
that.
strong and they finish stronger, and
Yep.
they train harder. The Olympians, we just had the Olympics. Watch. It's so funny. I love the Olympics. I love watching the Olympics. I love all these sports and what these athletes go through. But even more so when the Paralympics came on, and to realize what those people have to go through.
Yeah.
You're complaining? Your life is tough compared to what? Compared to the person who has no legs, who has all of these
Yeah.
different conditions that they still are out there competing. They are so inspiring. Imagine what they have to go through to become who they are and to do what they do. It's awesome to watch those kinds of people. I mean, the minute you think your life is challenging, just ask yourself, compared to what? Compared to who? Go
Um,
out there. You'll
uh,
find lots of people that are going through a lot more than you are most of the
I
time.
That's amazing. I coached last summer at a outdoor pickleball courts. I coached pickleball to players in wheelchairs, and one gentleman had artificial legs, but refused to compete in the wheelchair. This is in Wallingford, Connecticut. He wanted to compete, and I was always so concerned that he would topple over and hurt himself because he was running down every ball. And then I was so inspired because he ended up showing up at a public park for open play. That blew me away that he was courageous enough to go and play with everyone else. And
Yeah,
it's just, who am I to complain that I'm tired or my legs are sore? He doesn't have legs.
right. Exactly. No
Just
kidding.
amazing.
Yeah.
So, what did your daughter Ella think about it when you were writing a book and now it's over the finish line? You know, being a dad to a daughter, I have a daughter, Maddie, and what did she think about all this?
Well, she's 10, you know, and I've been writing this book for several years, actually, and on the go because she's my top priority. So, and she's very busy, athlete. She's a competitive soccer player. I had her in competitive swimming because I didn't never want her to drown, and so she swims all four sports. And I had her in jujitsu for a while, and I've been running her all over the place to these different things, school functions, and everything. So, I had my computer with me everywhere I went. My writing this thing took a long time because I was
Yeah,
always taking her here and there and just had to grab the time when I could. And you write a book, you got to be in the mood to write. Sometimes
yeah,
things just don't come, or you're just not there. So you got to just close the computer and do something else and get a distraction going and then come back to it or whatever. So a lot of times when I was in the mood and my creative mind was flowing and I had the computer open, of course, I wasn't giving her the attention that
yeah,
she needed and wanted because she was 7, 8, 9, now 10 when I was writing this thing. And so, she felt the sacrifice. She experienced it as much as I did of daddy daughter time. Um,
yeah.
so I'm not sure she was all that happy about me about me writing this book. But now, you know, when I got my first copy, because the book's not out yet, by the way. It's not, I mean, it's not
Oh,
published. You,
wow.
you can get it from me and you can get
Yeah.
it autographed by me at my website. It's not due to release from the publisher worldwide until December 3rd.
Oh, wow. And can you tell us your website? Spell it out for us.
Yeah, senseironthomas.com. And then you want to go to the products page. So it's sensei.ronthomas.com/shop. But you spell sensei SENSEIRONTHOMAS.com. And the book's there. You can get it autographed or not. You can get pictures from Cobra Kai and Karate Kid or not. But anyway, yeah. So my my daughter, when I got the book, in my hand and she read it, of course, she read the dedication page,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
dedicated to her and my wife. And then she put the book down. And then later on, she asked me if I forgot how it came up, but I said, "Well, did you read the acknowledgments?" Because I mentioned her name again in the acknowledgments, and I promised in the acknowledgments to make up the time that we had lost, together. And she just read that the other day, so she just wanted to read her name. She put the book down, and now she's, you know, I'm to her, I'm just dad.
Oh,
Um,
I love that. I
yeah,
I love that. I have a son, Andy, and then my daughter, Maddie. She's playing tennis as a freshman in college, and then my wife, Pam. I know you have your wife, Stacy, and it's that work-life balance and
yeah,
finding your purpose and kind of putting it all together. And I love the fact that you're a dad and a husband, and you have so much going on, and an actor, an author, sensei, and you know during the book, were there any challenges that you had? Like my quick story was, I was writing the book Tenacity for 2 years, and then about a few weeks before the final draft, my hard drive crashed. I lost the entire book and the backups. Um,
oh God,
so I was in mourning and depression for 3 to 6 months. uh I didn't I went from, and you could relate, Ron, I went from writing something every morning of every day for 2 years to not wanting to think or write anymore for, I think it was 3 months. And then finally I woke up one morning. I don't know what hit me. Maybe it was thinking about my mom or something. And I said, you know what? I can either just quit and not attempt to rewrite the book, or with what I already know, write a better one. So I went from 15 chapters to 30, one photo in each chapter to two, one quote at the beginning of each chapter to several quotes plus one of my own. Like, make it better. If you're going to do
yeah.
it, make it better. And then that's what powered me through to do it again. But were there any setbacks you had in actually writing the book or getting it published?
Not I, setbacks in no, not like that. That's a
Yeah, yes.
that's
Top that
but,
one, Ron. Top that one.
but like I have a pretty very spiritual, and I have a belief that there's no coincidences, right? There's no such thing as coincidence. Like
Yeah.
that didn't happen to you. It happened for you, you know, because you said it in your own words. You're just going to write a better book. And maybe the version you had on that computer wasn't the book you were supposed to put out, and the universe knew it. Maybe you didn't, And then, of course, technology crashes, and I think everything. People always say everything happens for a reason, you know. I'm not sure how many people who say that actually believe that or actually think that through. Um,
Yeah.
but I do. I think that there was a reason. Anyway, my the challenge I had with this book is I was using Mr. Miyagi's on-screen lessons
Yeah.
as a starting point for each lesson. Not
Yeah.
Ron Thomas's lessons. That would have
Yeah.
been easier. I could have started anywhere with the lessons that I have, but I had to pull lessons from the movie and think about what's underneath that, what's in there, what's deeper than what any audience member has ever thought about or seen on screen, and what's really there for them that people can use in their own lives. And that was challenging because I had to use Miyagi as my starting point, not myself, you know.
Yeah.
And so I had to really think things through and write and throw away stuff and then change stuff, and so
I love in each chapter, I don't want to spoil it, but in each chapter you have actionable tips.
yeah,
And I love that because there's inspiration and then there's what are you going to do about it?
yeah,
And I love the fact that you have these actionable tips. Is just it makes the book itself actionable. And the thing I like about it is each chapter, like you referenced before, is a standalone. So if you need help in one area, just go to the index, look at, okay, let me go reread that chapter, because I need help with whatever that is going on right now, respect or whatever it is. And or and I think that's big. I think that's big for athletes, and that's just big for people.
yeah, yeah,
To be able to make the book actionable, not like it's a novel and you have to read it from beginning to end necessarily.
yeah. Yeah, and I didn't always call them actionable. I had them when I was really originally writing the book. I had them as quick tips, quick tip, quick tip, and then I stopped and I thought about, wait a minute, no, exactly what you just said. Let's make this actionable for people. Let's put that word in there. These are quick, actionable tips that you can start applying in your life right now. You know, lots of people read books, self-help books or what have you. They don't put them into action. Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of people.
that's awesome. When you were making the movie, acting in the movie Karate Kid, was there a uh, thing that Mr. Miyagi did that resonated with you and that you put that in the book, like something that impacted you back then, and then now it has come to reality in a book or come to life in a book?
Um, no, because Pat Morita was just he was you know, he was amazing to watch. He was just a beautiful person and a beautiful he was always made us laugh because he was a comedian. But
Yeah.
he would just when it came time for the cameras to roll, he would just become Miyagi. And I was already a black belt. I was the only one out of the cast that was actually a real
Oh,
life black.
really? Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Yeah, no, I was, and the funny thing about it is, and I've told the story many times, but my agent said on the original audition, don't tell them. They're looking for actors. This is about acting. They're going to train you anyway. And so it wasn't until like 6 weeks into filming that, you know, Pat Johnson had noticed that I was, you know something because you can see how a white belt moves versus how a black belt moves. If you have a trained eye, there's a big difference in how a black belt moves. They hold their body positioning versus a white belt. And I like that analogy in life too. You can see how a white belt in life moves through life as opposed to a black belt in life, as opposed
Oh,
to a master.
love that.
You know,
Love that. Yeah,
that's
that's a
kind of what, yeah, that's kind of what the book is for too, is to help us move through life better, to live our best lives. Not I've got it that you can have misery, mediocrity, or mastery, and mastery is going to get you the kind of results that mediocrity can't, and misery won't. So anyway, yeah, I think I can point to one of my favorite scenes, and one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when you know Daniel-san has had enough. He's pissed. He's working on the house. He's washing the cars. He's scrubbing the floors. His shoulders hurting, and he's like, and Miyagi went fishing without him. Miyagi comes back for the end of the day, and he's like, oh, you missed a spot. Daniel-san's like, wait, what spot? Where you been? You could have gone. You could. He goes, yeah, everything not as it seems, Daniel-san. Yeah. He goes, bullshit, I'm going home. And Miyagi says, Daniel-san, come back, And then he has to show him, not tell him, but show him how everything he's been doing is not as it seems. And that you know more than you think you do. show me sand the floor, show me paint the fence, show me wax on, wax off. He does the whole thing. That's one of my favorite scenes, um, because we in life have been sanding floors and painting houses, and busting our butts, and we've learned a lot, but we just don't recognize it.
Yeah.
We've been through a lot of pain. We've been through a lot of stuff, and it's not what you're going through; it's what you're growing through. But we don't always recognize our growth. We only stay focused on the pain we've gone through, and then we become a victim. That's not mastery. That's having life master you. You want to master life, and that scene is representative of that, of what I'm talking about. And I think, and I say it in the book, we've all been through stuff. You haven't done the math. You are more than you think you are. You just haven't done the math, and nothing needs to be added to you. You just you need to lean into mastery a little bit more and see things a little bit differently and use the things you've gone through to elevate you even further. And that's what Daniel-san did when he was shown that he actually knew more. He
Yeah.
went from here to here, internally. And then everything blossomed from there. So that's such a critical scene and such a beautifully played scene by both those actors, Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. Love that scene.
That is by far my favorite scene, the wax on, wax off, the kind of what have I been doing this whole time? And then he has the epiphany because he actually does it. And yeah, that brings me chills, that whole scene. And I love what you just said, Ron, about you don't go through life, you grow through life is so important. This is oh, I'll bring it up to the camera, but this is that 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 famous scene at the end.
Yeah.
And I got this at a charity auction for Save the Children. It's autographed by William Zadka and Ralph Macchio. So I put that there in honor of you today.
That's
But
awesome.
just what is amazing to me is that in life there are lessons that happen to you every day, but they don't hit you between the eyes until you know it or need it. And it always reminds you of your purpose. Like, why are you here? I love the quote from Mark Twain: the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And for me, it's always that ongoing balance of giving back, working, and family. And unfortunately, my mom passed away 2 years ago of pancreatic cancer. And for anyone that's lost a loved one, especially to cancer, it's really tough when someone that believes in you and supports you is no longer there as your support vehicle. And it took us, my brother and I, a while to figure out what we were going to do to honor her legacy. And then we came up with, well, let's set our fourth world record in her honor. And that's a scary moment when your purpose meets your day to day, because there's no turning back.
Yeah.
You're going to make it happen. And are you ready to commit the time and energy and emotions to make it happen? And I remember I was interviewed after the record at Ron, and I said, the two things I know for sure: one, I love my mom, and two, a record is going to be set on August 17th. And anyways,
That's awesome.
for you and for this book, it's one of those things where it's almost, quote, a Bible to how to live your life in a way, because you say, the unbeatable guide to happiness, success, and mastery beyond the dojo is you want to find your joy or be happy in life. You want to be successful as far as your career or your family, and you want to master it as you do it. You don't just want to do it halfway, kind of like you said before, about it being in the middle or mastering it. And that's what I love. And after writing this book, and I know you mentioned, a sneak peek that you're already thinking about your next one. Can not to spoil anything, but do you know what the theme of your next book is going to be?
Uh, there are so many different directions I can take this, and I didn't include every on-screen teaching of Miyagi yet either.
Ah,
This is really just focused on the first movie. You
love
know,
that. That's true.
Miyagi continues in the second movie and has more life lessons, and you can categorize the life lessons of Mr. Miyagi to sports as an example. The hidden sports lessons of Mr. Miyagi, or that kind of thing. So I have thought about that, and because athletes, I've coached many athletes on their mental game, as have you, and it's a very important part of the game. Um, Even if you're a younger athlete and you don't think so, you're wrong. You
Yeah.
the professionals know it, and they have the money to pay for a sports psychologist, and they do, and all of that. But these kids in high school who want to go pro, they're not so sure about this mental thing, because you can't pick it up and lift it and make your arm, make your arms bigger. Yeah, so they can't see it, touch it, feel it, but they do. They experience it, and I can show them ways in which the mental game actually plays a mega role in your performance. And some of these kids are receptive to it, or they have to be shown, like Daniel's son. They have to be shown. And so if I get them in a room and I get it in front of them, like I do a lot of mental seminars, or I used to, at least for baseball players as an example. And I've shown things to some of these kids who were, they thought they knew it all. I've had a few of them actually cry right in front of me, like I didn't know that. I didn't feel, and so getting into the mental game of athletes is definitely a passion of mine, and I may find a way to take this book in that direction as well. Um,
I'll help you with the pickleball chapter.
yeah, for sure. We should get together and do a seminar.
I would
Maybe.
love it. Pickleball and tennis. I was certified 31 years ago, believe it or not, to coach tennis. And then the last 6 years, it's been a hybrid. And then the last couple years, exclusively pickleball. I mean, mental skills for any athlete, but I completely agree. Mental skills in sports are the same. It's just the vernacular and vocabulary that's different with certain nuances of sport, but the lessons and the learnings are identical, and that's what I find fascinating.
The thing is, you don't have a mind and a body. You don't just train your body for athletics and forget the mind. You have a mind body. It's one system. What you feed your body scientifically affects your mind and your brain.
Yeah.
And what you feed your brain scientifically, it affects your body. So if you want to perform at your optimum, you better learn how these two work and how they work together to elevate your game and utilize it. And one of the things that athletes want the most, and we used to say the zone. Back in the day, it was about the zone. Now it's more like the flow state. I don't
Yeah.
care what you call it. Athletes know what I'm talking about. When you're in that state, it's like we used to say in golf, man, he's playing lights out. He's playing unconscious. And
Yeah.
he is. He was
Yeah.
unconscious because it's the unconscious mind that took over, and they slipped into this space between conscious and unconscious
Yep.
where it's almost like they can't make a mistake. And athletes crave that. They don't know how it happens. They want to get in that zone or that flow state or that space in between, whatever you call it. They want to be there where they're not trying, they're just doing and letting it happen instead of making it happen, and all of that kind of thing. The key is learning how to create that space on purpose, not just waiting for it and praying for it to happen to you in the middle of a competition, but actually learning how to slip into that space on purpose in every competition, you know.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you just said about flow state. And yeah, I coach that same thing is you can't control yourself to be in flow state or the zone. Otherwise, you would just like a light switch. Oh, let me play in the zone today. I mean, why would you choose not to play in flow state?
Right.
But it's doing the same things you did the last time that you were in flow state to then try to influence your mind and body to get there. And then when you're there, don't question why you're there or how long or will it end or why is this. You just allow it to be. It
Yeah.
is what it is,
Yeah.
and it lasts as long as it does or not. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you can prepare to try to get there, but you can't control the getting there. And
Yeah.
yeah,
But
it's
you can learn to you can learn to create things, create a state that gets you there more often than not. And
give it
that's what,
give us an example of that, Ron.
it's just being present. You know, athletes are too busy trying to make something happen, and that creates tension. You try to make something happen, all of a sudden, I gotta make it happen. I gotta win. And then all of a sudden you're tense. Well, when you're in the flow state, you're not tense at all. So how do you create relaxation? So you have to learn how to be present and be in touch with your senses. I actually coached a tennis player on this very topic, and he said, "Well, how do I do that?" I said, you know, you've heard this one before: lose your mind and come to your senses,
Yeah,
right? And so, how do you do that? Well, I'm on the court. I can. Well, stop for a second and feel the grip on the racket. Just feel it. What's it feel like in your hand? What's the texture? What's is your hand sweaty? What are you feeling? All of a sudden, their mind is on their senses, what they're feeling, the temperature outside. What am I, the clothing on my body? All of a sudden the mind starts to get present because you're not feeling that racket yesterday.
yeah,
Now you're not feeling it tomorrow, you're feeling it now, and your senses are always giving you information about now. The mind is, oh, I got to get this next point, I got to return this serve, that's in the future. And so you're trying to make stuff happen and you create tension, and you can never get in the flow state when you're totally tense, mentally or physically tense. So that's an
yeah.
example, you know
Love that. Absolutely love that. I say that senses can't exist in the future or the past. They're only in the present. And
yeah,
so the sensation of touch, like you were saying, what it feels like, even sounds. I say, if you're playing tennis or pickleball,
yeah,
are you outside? Or do you hear the birds? Do you hear the
yeah,
traffic? Do you hear the ball on the other court? What are you hearing? And once you get into that, where you're assessing whether or not you're using your senses and aware of using your senses, then it's hard to be nervous or anxious because fear is you're living in the future. Anger, you're frustrated about the past. But if
yeah,
you're present, you're experiencing these senses. I
yeah,
absolutely love what you just said. Love it.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, and
So
athletes need to learn this stuff if they want to, be a champion. I mean, a champion, I define champion as those who win consistently, you know. So uh, if you want to do that in athletics, you better learn this kind of stuff, and learn to master it. Stop letting the sport master you. Stop letting the competition master you. Stop letting your opponent master you. Lots of athletes are their opponent, because of their reputation, has already mastered them before they step on the court. They've
yeah,
already,
absolutely.
you need to become a master. It's also all about self mastery, and life mastery. And like I said, mastery, self mastery, life mastery, mastery in general, when you lean into it, it'll get you places and get you results that mediocrity won't. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's not about winning, or at least focus on winning, but winning being the byproduct of self-mastery, of self-respect, of self-love. You do those things, you start from the inside, and then the outside things will take care of themselves.
right.
And
It's all about
and
energy, right? It's all about energy and raising your energy and your vibration and your frequency that you're existing in and putting out. The outside world has to match that, you know.
yeah,
So
absolutely. And going back to, let's say, a little tangent, but with the show Cobra Kai, which is a great show. It's really fun and funny, and I loved that. you were a priest in that, and a
Pastor.
master. Oh, that's right, a pastor,
100%.
pastor. Yes. And what did
Yeah.
you what did you think about that role? Just real quickly.
Well, I had a phone call with the creators and the producers before they brought me back, and they thought, well, what do you think? Where do you think Bobby is now in life? And I thought my first was, well, I think he's probably an orthopedic surgeon specializing in knee replacements. you know, and then I thought, well, his reputation, Bobby's reputation is the good guy out of the bad guys. He's the good Cobra. He's the good bad guy, who always had a conscience. He always had a heart. He always knew where to draw the line, and he was willing to stand up to his best friend Johnny, or even his sensei. And there's a scene that got deleted. It's out there on YouTube now, but there's a scene that got deleted where after I hurt, after Bobby hurts Daniel San's leg, he takes off his belt and throws it at Kreese's feet and walks out.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, that says everything you need to know about who Bobby is. Or so in the series, I thought he could be a motivational speaker too, like myself. Because
Yeah.
my life and Bobby lives kind of run on parallel tracks. Um, yeah, and I love the thing about Bobby. They made him a pastor, which I thought was genius. He's out there trying to make a difference, and so I love that he's a pastor, but he's not afraid to go into a bar, have a few beers with his buddies, and get in a barroom brawl. I love that. He's still a cobra. He's still a cobra at heart. So I thought I'm a little disappointed that I'll be honest that Bobby wasn't more part of the show. I think there's
Yeah.
so much exploration there and being original, and I know that fans agree with that. Um,
Yeah.
they message me all the time about that. The original fans of the Karate Kid wanted to see more Bobby, and they wanted to
Yeah.
explore his past relationships with Daniel San and Kreese and all of that stuff. But there was a lot of exploration that could have been done with the character, I think. And in a show that's so everybody's trying to find balance. Everybody's trying, they're so out of balance, each character, they're trying to bring themselves back to center and find balance. Bobby was the one character in the entire show that had balance,
I
and
love
was
that.
centered, and there could have been a lot more done with Bobby. But I'm grateful for the time I spent on the show, and I like the direction that they took him in as far as being a pastor. That was great.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I see you slash Bobby as being a sensei of senseis. Like I see you, and I see you, Ron, as being a sensei of senseis. I
Yeah,
coach pickleball, but I also coach coaches and
yeah,
certify them on how to coach pickleball.
yeah,
And I always realize everybody's different. So you have your knowledge about being mastery. And then when you work with people, when you're an inspirational speaker, when you coach athletes, it's being clay or flowing on what they need and what putting it together. And like you said, good coach draws that out of them, the best that you might not see in yourself, they see and they can pull it out. I think that's what this book does. The hidden life lessons of Mr. Miyagi. I'll show it again. Uh, Available online now. SenseiRonThomas.com. Is that it? SenseiRonThomas.com.
yep, yep,
I'll
yep.
post I'll post a link to it and more information so people can go and get the book, and you
And
can
I'll
get it
sign it.
autographed. And
Yeah,
what's that?
that's the thing. If you buy it through me in December, you can get it anywhere worldwide. But you buy it through me, I can sign it, and that's the thing. Like you don't have to wait for a book signing or to see me at a Comic-Con somewhere in person. But I'll actually I can sign it and send them. I've done that already for a bunch of people around the world, uh, you know, internationally or domestically.
I love
So
that. Yeah, I'm really thrilled. I'm really happy that you came out with your second book, The Hidden Life Lessons of Mr. Miyagi, an unbeatable guide to happiness, success, and mastery beyond the dojo. And one final question is there a something that you want to leave with your audience. They've read the book. Okay, let's say they've already read the book. As far as a takeaway, if nothing else, this is the one thing I want to resonate with my readers.
Put it into action. So many people go to personal development seminars and buy a bunch of self-help books and personal, take some of the ideas and concepts. I say in the beginning, you're not going to agree with everything I write. And I'm not here trying to be right. I'm trying to make a difference. So if you grab onto one thing and it makes a difference for you, put it into action, and don't just put it back on the shelf. Put it in your heart, put it in your daily actions, put it in your mind. Take that one thing, reread the book if it really resonates with you, and let more sink in. I've got a book that I've been reading for years, and every time I read it, I get something new out of it. So that's the one thing. Take it, put it into action, and take the lesson about believing in possibilities. That lesson is about Mr. Miyagi trying to catch the fly with chopsticks. And
Yeah.
why is he trying to do that? To you and I, that's like impossible, you know? But yeah, exactly. That's what the chopsticks are about. It's about catching that fly, And for Mr. Miyagi, here comes my Labradoodle. Hi, Toby. What's up, buddy?
Oh, I love it. Hey, Toby.
Hi, buddy. Um,
Love dogs.
so, can you let me finish my thing here? Okay, um,
He wants
so
to be your co-author of your next book. That's what he's lobbying for that right now.
yeah, he's such a sweet guy. Um,
I love it.
dude, I'm trying to think here. So catching that, believe in possibilities. So many people, we're taught to believe in what can't happen, what's impossible, and instead of focusing on what can happen. And that's what Mr. Miyagi did. He believed in the possibility of catching the fly. And his protege, Daniel-san, didn't question his belief. The glaring probability that it's an impossibility to catch a fly.
Yeah.
Instead, he just went along with his teacher. And what if all teachers focused on what can happen for their students, or
Yeah.
the people they're coaching or whatever, instead of focusing on what can happen and crushing the dreams of people? My own father and lots of people, when I said I wanted to move to Hollywood to be an actor, told me, don't do it. My own father said, you got 6 months and then I want you back in college. I was in college anyway, but I was like,
Mm.
uh, so I'm like, if I listened to those people, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. Not
Yeah.
about the Karate Kid anyway, so you can't let people crush your dreams. You have to learn to believe in what can happen, in believe in possibilities. And if you're a leader out there, if you're a coach, stop letting your own fear about your students' future and what might happen if they go down this road and what might not happen, and just allow everybody to have their own path and believe in the possibility for them and with them. If more coaches, more mentors, more leaders, more teachers, more parents did that same thing for people, a lot more people would have more fulfilled lives. I believe so. That's my belief. You don't have to buy that, but don't let your fears, don't impose your own fears about what can happen onto someone else if you're in the position to influence a younger mind.
Oh, I
Um,
love that. I
and if you're
love
just,
that.
and if you're just yourself and you're reading this book for and you're not in that position, but you think this book can help you, then again, focus on what can happen for you, because lots of things can happen that you're not even seeing yet.
Yeah,
So
I love that. That is so powerful what you just said there. That I see this book as being almost not just a Bible for life, for the actual person or athlete, but for coaches that have influence on other people. You're trying to get them to be happy, be successful, become masters in their own right. And yeah, to kind of shed your own fear and not coach with your own fear. Very quick story on that before we conclude. But my brother and I, whenever we did free record interviews, when August 17th was coming up for that pickleball rally, he would say if, even to our volunteer staff, to say, if we do this, if we do that. And I said, stop using if. let's remove the word if we set the record from our mental vocabulary. It's when we set the record, this is what's going to happen. When we
Exactly.
set the record, we're going to talk to the journalists. When we set the record, we have to make sure to take pictures of the clickers, whatever. And
Yeah.
you kind of live your life as a future fact, and then the possible, you know, what's impossible becomes inevitable.
Because
Uh,
words matter. And I talk about that in the book. I mean, there's a whole lesson in the book about precision. Precision differentiates the master from the student. And that's true in martial arts, but it's true in life. And you being precise in your words, like you just gave a great example, it can make all the difference. And that's what masters do. So, you know, you're already leaning into mastery according to my book.
all right, almost there.
Well, I don't think we ever get there. I
Yeah,
don't claim to be
exactly.
I don't
Yeah.
claim to be a master myself. But I try to lean into it as much as I can. And if I'm not doing that, I catch myself probably quicker than a lot of other people who, you know, aren't leaning into it. So,
Oh, I love that, leaning in, and yeah, there's no crescendo or peak. It's just ongoing improvement, and
yeah,
you're always a sponge. You're always learning.
right.
Um, well, Sensei Ron, thank you so much for your time today. I wish you the best of success with your new book, the Hidden Life Lessons of Mr. Miyagi. We'll definitely be back in touch for sure. Maybe we could do this again. But
Yep.
love your wisdom, love your positivity, love your confidence. The mix of confidence and humbleness is just awesome. And yeah, this is great. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Back at you, by the way.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
I'll be in touch.
All right. Take care.
Bye.